0.1 miles away from me.
Oh my gosh.
Was a place called Rehab After Work.
Oh my God.
I'm not even joking. It was literally called that.
Hello, Rehab After Work.
Literally.
Okay, I'm coming. The Spiritual Shitshow podcast with Suzanne Sole, episode number 3. Dude, welcome to the Spiritual Shitshow podcast, where we get into the utter shit show the healing and spiritual awakening journey can be. I'm your host, Suzanne Sole, comedian, lifelong spiritual student, and I am soups excited because I get to talk with the effervescent and all-around nice guy, Chaz Bademan. Chaz is the founder of the AXC Creative Group with a mission to film and help entrepreneurs do what they love. He says, I am driven by the desire to help people and make a meaningful impact. Well, we'll see about that. JK. Chaz is a lovely guy with a big heart, and we had a wonderful conversation about the creative and spiritual journey and about recovery. All right, let's get to this motherfucking chitty chat with Chaz, shall we? Let's shall. Darling, roll it. No, roll it now. I don't want to have to tell you again to please fucking roll it. You know how excited I am about talking with Chaz. I'm sorry, I'm just so fucking excited. Chaz, yes. Welcome to the Spiritual Shitshow podcast interview shit show.
I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy you're joining me.
Yeah, me too.
So you are a creative agency founder.
That's correct.
You are a podcast host.
Yes.
And you are an all-around spiritual guy.
I would say so. Absolutely, yeah.
Tell me about your agency.
Okay, sure. Yeah. So I started it back in 2020, and I started it while I was actually still working my corporate job. Mm-hmm. So I worked in corporate America for 10 years.
Wow.
So I worked at the financial firm Vanguard. My last few jobs there were doing technical project management. So I was managing some pretty big technical projects and working with like senior level executives and department heads, and it was a lot of fun. We were modernizing a lot of old technology into the cloud.
Okay, well that's cool.
Yeah, it was cool. It was fun. And that's how like Peter and I and Vic and Get Along and Grayson Sky, it's like all this like technology and cousin, our mutual connection, and kind of diving into that a little bit.
Yes. My cousin is Peter Mastrogiacomo from Grayson Sky, and they are producing this podcast interview shit show right now. Carry on.
Shout out to Peter. Shout out to Grayson
Shout out
Sky.
to Peter.
Back in 2020, I started my agency because for a variety of reasons, but I had been doing some creative work on the side for a long time.
Right.
So almost about 10 years on the side, I was doing photography, wedding photography, event photography.
Side hustles.
It was a side hustle. And it was just a passion project of mine. I was having a lot of fun doing it.
Yeah.
And then back in 2020, when COVID was happening and we were working from home, one of my good friends and then went on to become my client, Abel Hart, he moved back from LA to the Philadelphia area. And then him and I just started filming together. So I also was kind of curious to try to figure out the music industry a little bit. The way that he was describing it, the things that he had been going through, like a lot of it sounded like really confusing.
Yeah, and it is. And you know, just let me say, I know that there are so many ways to skin a cat in the music industry.
Yeah.
So I love a lot of the stuff you guys were doing because you guys were forging your own path and doing it the way you wanted to do it. Yeah. Which is really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's a lot more people that are taking their own music career into their own hands now, especially with the tools of like social media and video content creation.
It's like everything's right there.
Yeah, but like when him and I were first starting to work together, like the first year and a half, I was doing the social media and the content creation, shooting some videos in hopes that someone from the music industry would see what we're doing and see this talent.
Right. That's how it starts.
Save us.
Yes.
Take us to the next level.
I know this. Yes.
You know, and I think, after working on our project for like a year and a half or so together, we had some viral moments. So we created some viral moments on TikTok. I ended up leaving my corporate job. It's been almost 2 full years since then.
Wonderful.
Yeah, so I left my corporate job and then took the leap of faith into the agency world, full-time creative.
Wow. Incredible.
which was scary, and it continues to like be scary in different ways and exciting, and trying to just figure out the different layers to it each and every day.
Yeah, let me ask you, what is like spiritual? What is part of your spiritual path of doing that?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, 'cause is it, like you said, it's an act of faith. And so how did you connect with to have the faith?
For sure. I love that question.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll try to give you like the Cliff Notes.
Okay.
Yeah. So I would say my spiritual awakening for me really started back in 2017 when I decided to get sober.
Amen.
So I had been struggling in silence for a long time. So I had been using for a long time. I started in high school, and then in college, it just kind of got a little bit more out of control.
Right.
Different substances started to come into the mix, different pharmaceuticals, self-medicating. But I was always trying to keep up this external appearance on the outside.
Yeah.
You know, like still graduated from college.
Right.
You know, got a job.
Right.
You know, wasn't able to hold a job in the beginning when I first graduated college. You know, got fired from a few jobs.
Right.
But then I cleaned my act up enough to, you know, land the job that I worked for like 10 years.
Okay.
And there I would describe myself as more of kind of like a weekend warrior.
Right on.
Where like during the week I like was keeping it together.
Right.
Like, at least for the most part, as someone, you know, fresh out of college in their, you know, early 20s.
Yeah. And when you're doing that, because I know that world myself, it's like you're kind of flatlined. Because you're really not evolving. You're making it happen. You're doing, you know, forging ahead in your career, and yet as a person, you're kind of straight line.
Yeah.
Because you can't do that when you're escaping yourself.
True.
Every weekend.
And I wasn't even aware of that. I wasn't even like aware of like any of this, you know, this spirituality. I would say I had some faith like younger growing up. Like I believed in, you know, the idea of a God. And although I wasn't like really relating to like everything like in the Catholic religion space as like a young child, I think I would say I had a real falling out of faith in high school when my mom, who's still alive now, got diagnosed with breast cancer. So she fought breast cancer twice, and she's in remission now, and she's been in remission for a while.
Wonderful.
But I would say at that point in time, it was really hard for me to maintain any type of faith just with all of that going on. And I wasn't doing like any spiritual practices at the time either. So it was kind of just like a simple, like, if there was some type of God, why would this be happening to us or our family? I just couldn't like make sense of it all.
Right.
So I'd like detached really from any type of belief system, really probably for then that whole time of me using up until getting sober, which was like from high school until when I got sober, it was probably almost like 15 years really. So then back in 2017, when I finally decided to get some help, I would say that really started my spiritual awakening, because by the end of me using, I was using substances that I never thought I would use in ways I never thought I would use them. And I think you were sort of describing this kind of like flat line. I felt very emotionally numb and didn't even really realize it.
Right.
You know, until like reflecting on it after the fact. You know?
Yeah, it's hard to see the forest from the trees. And it's like you're saying, when you're out of it, then you're like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
What was I, you know, I was like, I didn't even realize how much I was missing.
Seriously. And I like wake up every day with so much gratitude for life. You know, even though life throws so many different challenges and curveballs and things are like still really confusing at like different times. The foundational element of gratitude in my life are just like, wow, I feel like more and more continues to be revealed. Like my awareness, like my belief system continues to grow, especially the deeper that I dive within. So
can I ask you? When you say your spiritual awakening started, what does that mean to you? And what was that experience for you?
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I would say when I talk about a spiritual awakening, I would talk about me starting to get out of my own way and then also starting to believe in something bigger than myself. So I'll refer to that as like my spiritual awakening, but I like to equate my spirituality and spiritual growth like with awareness. I feel like those two like really go hand in hand for me. It's like the more like aware I am like internally and of my surroundings, the more I feel like I'm like spiritually in tune.
Like conscious.
Yeah. Got
it.
Yeah, I would say so for sure. And so when I first decided to get some help, I didn't want my job to know that I was struggling. I didn't really want my parents to know.
Right.
I'd ruined my relationship with my ex-girlfriend. I'd moved back in with my parents, and there started to be some signs. Like
Sure.
my parents were like finding me like sleeping in my car in their driveway at like 6 a.m. where I had like slept there from the night before.
You were really having a shit show.
I definitely was. Yeah, I was struggling.
Yeah.
Some of these substances like really had gotten a hold of me.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Thank God you're where you are now.
Yeah, seriously. Yeah, so grateful. And I also like to say, you know, for anyone that's like struggling or like for people that don't understand addiction, like in my opinion, doesn't discriminate. You know,
Right.
It doesn't like if you're smart or
Right.
dumb, or it's not just like
Exactly.
unintelligent
It's
people
not-
are the only ones like, you know, that
Right.
get into using.
Yeah. It's not because of you or who you are. It can happen to anyone.
It can happen to anyone. And
Right.
I think a lot of these, you know, I was a part of that whole kind of like opioid epidemic, crisis, you know, whatever it's been labeled now, where starting to like use different things without really understanding like how much they would grab a hold of me, you know, and only really, you know, speaking for myself in that way. So I started to go to this intensive outpatient program. And
okay.
Yeah, the story around it is pretty funny in some ways where...
Wait, I'm sorry, can I ask, how did you turn around from sleeping in the car in the parents' driveway to getting into an outpatient program? Like, what was your come to Jesus moment?
I would say it was a year of just like, today's the last day of me using. Today's the last day. Today's the last day.
And then finally.
Like a year of that.
Wow, yeah.
And also I financially like used all of my resources, like all of my savings, had run up credit cards, I started to like sell some of my personal belongings.
Wow.
I started to fall asleep while driving, sometimes with other people that weren't using, that they started to like notice. So I was like blowing my cover, you know, and I think, you know, the people that care about me, you know, are starting to notice. And my now wife, Lauren, you know, her and I have been married. This year will be 5 years. We've known each other for almost 9 years.
Amazing.
Yeah. So her and I were dating at the time, but she was like, especially in the beginning when I was kind of like hiding it, like my using and my relationship with her were like kind of separate, you know, same way when I would like go into the office, like I'm like, okay, I'm getting it together today.
You know, and it is, might I say, it is, you know, some people are so stealth that you can get by for you, like you did, for years and years and years, and no one like recognizes like this person has a serious substance problem, but no one would ever know because he's, you know, making it happen at work and he's being where he's got to be elsewhere and, you know, family functions, et cetera, et cetera. But meanwhile, hiding a really big challenge.
Definitely. And denial is like a big part of my story. I didn't identify with being an addict until I was like going to recovery 12-step meetings for like 90 days. Then I like finally became open to the idea that like, wait a second, like I might actually be an addict, which I can like talk a little bit more about reading some of the literature and how that happened. But so when it was like my last like spout of using, I didn't want anyone to know I was using. So I Googled, is there any way I can go to rehab after work?
Oh my gosh.
And
no, I get that. I mean,
And then 0.1 miles away from me.
Oh my gosh.
There's a place called Rehab After Work.
Oh my God.
I'm not even joking. It was literally called that.
Hello, Rehab After Work.
Literally.
Okay, I'm coming.
It was seriously called that.
I love it.
So
God bless those people for naming it that.
Seriously, And then, you know, thank you for everyone that's like in the recovery space and making themselves available to help people. And, you know, that's why I'm so open about this story and this conversation. Like, I don't know who's going to hear this and when, or like find me on social media and will like resonate with my story. And maybe they've been like, who knows?
It's so important. And I am a 12-stepper as well.
Oh, nice.
I'm a proud member of Alcoholics Anonymous.
Amazing.
And the same, I resonate so much with what you said of the admitting. The admitting we were powerless. Step one. And that our lives had become unmanageable. And it's like, that is so humbling when you finally go, I'm beat.
Seriously.
That's the truth.
Absolutely.
So, amen to that. I mean, and then you turn around and you go, thank God I had that moment.
Seriously,
Because that is the moment that I saved my life. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Go ahead.
Yeah, no, seriously. And so grateful for that. And yeah, the IOP program that I did, most people were coming into that program after going to like a traditional rehab.
Right.
And I didn't know about any of the stuff before getting some help. You know, I had obviously like heard of rehab, but
Sure.
and I heard of AA, but I didn't know about 12 steps. And
Right.
I judge that a lot of people that maybe listen to this have no idea.
Right.
You know,
I did the same.
Yeah,
I stigma, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
I don't want to be in that room with someone. I'm ashamed.
Yeah.
And it's like the greatest thing ever.
It's a real thing. You know, I was the type of person that would be using a particular type of substance in a certain type of way and looking at someone that was doing it in the same way right next to me, like, how pathetic.
Isn't that unbelievable?
It really is.
I'm too. Me as well.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, look at her.
Yeah.
What is she? Oh, she's like all over the place. And I'm like 2 minutes later.
Seriously. Yeah.
Blackout.
Really though. Yeah.
Yeah.
And, yeah, that denial, I would say, you know, carried me into those rooms, you know, in some type of way. And my resistance to getting help, I just finally kind of broke down and gave up, you
Beautiful.
know. And I don't relate to a lot of people's like war stories. You know,
Sure.
people are like, oh, I did this, I'm doing this, and it's like I fell out and all these things. It's like, but what I can relate to a lot of times after going to 12-step meetings, a lot of them and like being sponsored and going through the steps and sponsoring other men, like I was like fully in it.
Yeah.
I could usually relate to how the person was feeling, like where the using took them, like how they were feeling when they decided to get some help. So I feel like that's really important when I share my story to talk about like how I was feeling.
Yes.
So I was feeling really empty. I was feeling really lost. I was feeling stuck, confused. I would say numb, really, really numb, like not in touch with my feelings whatsoever.
Like you were like just wearing your bodysuit.
Yeah.
And just like, what do I have to do next? Drive to work. Okay, now. Yeah.
Seriously.
Yeah.
And I would say now what excites me about my spiritual journey is like the unraveling of all of that, like getting more in touch with my feelings, my emotions.
Yes.
That's what I refer to as this spiritual awakening, is like getting more in touch with myself, my purpose, all these different practices.
Yeah.
But for anyone that's kind of curious about the experience, kind of jumping into the 12-step space. So a lot of people are coming out of like a more traditional rehab, and then doing this outpatient program, which you could like reintegrate, or if you had a job, go to work and go to it after.
Yeah.
But I told the counselor, I was like, look, I've done this many times. I don't need rehab. Like, people can't know. I'm going to self-detox myself, which I did, which was very painful. And I wouldn't recommend to anyone. It was dangerous, I would say. So, you know, I was using certain substances to get off other substances.
Right.
So
PSA, don't do it.
Don't do it. Yeah, no, don't do it. Yeah, there's accessible help out there, you know, for everyone, you know. And if you're trying to figure out like how to get some help and you have like no idea where to look, just like just send me a message on like Instagram, or like, you're not alone. You know, there's different like resources that are out there.
Where can they send a message?
Yeah, so you can message me at Chaz Bademan, and that's Bademan on Instagram.
And ask him questions about recovery.
Yeah, I'm totally open to helping, because I know it can be confusing, like where to go, and then also like insurance and like what am I eligible for, and everyone has like different backgrounds, and also you might be like not really open with the people around you that you're trying to get some support, you know, and there might not be like a rehab after work 0.1 miles from you, you know, so everyone's in different situations.
I'm sure that's probably not usual, but it should be. Whoever you are, people that made rehab after work, we love you. We see you. And we want you to open a store next to everyone's work.
Seriously though, yeah. I mean, I don't know. I wouldn't be here. Undoubtedly, I wouldn't be here, at least like right here, right now with you, you know, if it weren't for that program and that counselor. And I feel like this is why it's so important for me to like step up and share my story, because I don't know who's going to resonate with it.
That's right.
If I had a different counselor that I didn't resonate with, I probably would have bounced, like, and just like, see, I knew it was like that.
Right. And it's especially, I think, and that was from my experience too, the functional, you know, substance user or the functional alcoholic, it takes a lot longer to hit your bottom, because you are not, like you're saying, you're not like, you know, I wasn't drinking gin at 7 a.m.
Right.
You know, but when I had one drink, I didn't remember what happened.
Yeah.
And when you're a weekend warrior, but yet you're still dabbling in very dangerous substances.
For sure.
And, you know, really doing a lot of unhealthy, unhelpful, like damaging, damage to your life. And so it's easy to carry on like that for years and years and years.
For sure.
And so when you get to that moment of it's unmanageable, it's the most relieving thing. It feels like putting down 1,000,000 pounds, doesn't it?
Yeah. I would say so, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And especially towards the end, I had like become like full blown, like everyday sneak, like it was becoming like really unmanageable,
right.
you know? And, so going into the IOP program, so grateful for that counselor. He had been doing it for like 30 years. I really resonated
Those are the
with him.
greatest.
Yeah, he was just like, hey, just like sit down, like stop thinking, you know, like you can't like think your way out of this. Like you're over intellectualizing, trying to get better. Like this process like doesn't work that way. Like the more you can just kind of like sit down and just like listen, the better off you'll be.
Right.
So I would say that was like really humbling in a lot of ways. And that was the first time I really kind of like sat down and sort of listened in that way. But I also noticed on the wall, there were these 12 steps, and all throughout the steps, it said God. Mm-hmm. So I was still coming from this place of like not believing in anything. So I was like, okay, I'll do this IOP thing until I can get my like money back on track, but then I'm out of here. I'm not going to do the 12-step thing. I see there's God like all throughout it. I don't believe in God. So I like this counselor.
Yes.
I'll work with him.
Right.
It was a group setting.
Yeah.
You know, I liked connecting with the other people in the group. Right. But then, you know, I wasn't hanging out with my friends who I was hanging out with anymore when I was using.
Well, yeah, that has to happen.
Yeah. And, you know, I had nothing better to do on a Friday night. And I really connected with one of the guys that I was in the IOP program with. And he was already going to 12-step meetings on Friday night. So he was going to a lot of them, but he had made one of his meetings his home group, which he was going to every week.
I have a home group.
Nice. Yeah. And I feel like it's really, you know, it's good in the beginning, especially to find people I feel like that you can relate to.
Yes.
Because I think a big part of when I was trying to get help, there was other parts of me that might still be like intertwined with my addiction and stuff that like wanted to separate me from all these people, like, differentiate me from everyone.
Talk you out of it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, the same voice that was trying to talk me into doing all these sort of insidious things.
Yeah.
You know?
Just get it done.
And I didn't for some time realize that I could become like a witness of that voice in my head.
I love that.
As opposed to being consumed by it.
Right.
Yeah, which has been very, very eye-opening and awakening.
Amazing.
Process.
May I ask you?
Yeah.
When you say you became aware of the witness, do you see that as like your spiritual essence or your soul? Or more of a consciousness of your being? What is your version of that?
Yeah, it's a really good question. It's evolved for me over time. So when I first got sober, within my first year, one of my best friends from high school, I guess I don't have to put names out there, so I can tell it in full. So he was still using at the time, and he was living in another state. He was essentially kind of homeless. Me and his brother ended up going back down there. His brother didn't realize how much he was struggling. And then we ended up bringing him back home, you know, after some time. Or he came back home, I should say.
Right.
He ended up moving back home. So him and I reconnected and we were going to meetings together. And the reason I bring him up is because while I was getting really into the 12-step literature and working and doing the step work, he was getting more into Alan Watts and Carl Jung and some of these philosophers.
Huge fan.
Yeah.
All of them.
Yeah.
Both of them.
Yeah, both of them. Wow. Listening to Alan Watts was so transformational for me in a variety of ways, but he started to open up my mind to all of these different concepts of like spirituality in general. You know, I don't know if there's enough I could explain on this podcast, but I would say, like, for example, like meditation.
Yes.
So I like didn't meditate. Like, didn't think I could meditate. I was like, I can't like sit down there and close my eyes and just like be with myself. Like my mind is just running.
Like a circus.
Yeah, but Alan Watts had a 15-minute meditation on YouTube that I ended up doing every day for years.
Wow, that's impressive.
Yeah, so I would just listen to this.
Yeah.
You know, and it was so helpful. It was a 15-minute meditation. It's still out there for free on YouTube. And if anyone is like curious about meditation but feels like they can't meditate, that's a really good one to start with.
What's it called?
It's just like Alan Watts 15-minute guided meditation on YouTube.
Simple.
Yeah. So I would say as far as like kind of that like witness consciousness or the idea of like kind of perhaps something else going on out here, I started to become like really open-minded. And then also as a part of doing my step work, I picked a sponsor who had shared about also coming into recovery without a belief in a higher power. So I heard him like sharing about that from the floor.
That's helpful.
I really liked what he had said. So I was like, all right, well, if I'm going to like try this thing and I'm going to like stick around, everyone kept asking me like who my sponsor was, which was super annoying because I'm like, I don't have one. I don't have one. Like, bro, what do you mean? You've been here for like 2 months. Like you need to get a sponsor.
And you don't realize you need to get a sponsor until you get a sponsor and you're like, I really needed a sponsor.
Yeah. And I only thought I was going to be there for like a couple months. Like I wasn't buying into this. I'm like, yeah, but I will say I felt so welcomed at those meetings and felt like people like really genuinely had an interest in me. And I was like, wait a second, they don't want anything from me, but they're actually like curious about me and they're like welcoming and accepting. And it was also really inspiring to see how many people had like multiple years of sobriety. And I was like, well, if they have multiple years, there's no way they were using what I was using, how I was using it, you know, but they were, you know, and they had put this work in, and I was really inspired by that. But specific to my work in the step work and struggling to believe in a higher power, my sponsor at the time, once we got to that step, suggested that I start praying for other people. He was like, I know you don't believe in anything, but just try praying for other people.
That's lovely.
I would say that was a really foundational jump off point to my like spiritual awakening. Because when I started to pray for other people, even though I didn't believe in anything that I was praying to, it got me out of my head for the first time.
Can I just say that what your story says to me is that when we're in our struggles and we're in our shit show journey, we don't we think that it's like only specific to us, what we're going through. And, oh my gosh, and how am I going to get through this? Because, you know, no one understands. And then you have a sponsor who literally is like, I understand. And I know exactly what I need to tell you to get you to open your mind. Because that's who I was.
That is so powerful. And I feel like that is so needed in this world, whether people in recovery or not. Because there's a lot of people out there that just don't have someone in that way. You know, a lot of people.
You know, have no one to talk to.
Like, you know, or, you know, like, exactly. So I think whether you're in recovery or not, I think there's also different like groups out there for like mental health or like whatever sort of like life thing you're going through. If you do some research, I bet you can find a group out there. Again, I don't know where like everyone's living, but if there's not an in-person group, you can definitely find something online, which is like what I'm so passionate about now, is like putting this information online, building community, sharing my experience, and more so recently,
we're grateful.
Shifting more into this coaching space with my agency, like I was telling you about a little bit. But I will say, before kind of going into that, and to shift gears a little bit.
But I do want to say, like, so doing the praying for other people.
I wanted to touch on that.
Yes, that was your gateway. That was your gateway spiritual tool.
It really was. And then I selfishly started to pray for other people.
Oh, I love that.
Because it got me out of my own head.
Yes.
So when I was driving to and from work, I just started praying for like everyone that I knew. And then what started to happen was things in my life just started to get better. I started to feel better.
That's incredible.
And then these like all these synchronicities started happening. You know, like this thing I was looking for, then that popped up, or like this person reached out to me. Like all of these way too many coincidences started happening.
Unbelievable.
I started praying for other people.
And you were like, I am being shown. It is being shown to me.
I started to be like, these are too many coincidences. Like, okay, maybe there is something out there. I don't know what is going on, but all right, let's like proceed with this like step work process.
A oneness, a connection, a spiritual essence or energy that is activated by what I'm doing.
Seriously.
Right.
Yeah. And that continues to evolve for me, like my understanding of it and kind of tying that back to that witness consciousness piece.
So basically, you're on your journey still of like kind of identifying what exactly the observer is.
Yeah. I would
I love that.
I would say I was just like, open, curious.
You're just learning,
like, open,
growing.
Curious, like, okay, I'm open to something. And then I like proceeded to do like the 12-step work. So for anyone
which
that's
is
like unfamiliar, it's like, I feel like if anyone's listening to this, and even if you don't struggle with like drugs or alcohol, just like look into what the 12 steps are.
Oh my God. Life-changing.
Yeah. I feel
like doing the 4th step.
Oh my gosh.
I did that
of course. For a year and a half.
Okay, I was going to say, I avoided it for a year and a half.
Yeah, I was.
Yeah.
Yeah, same. Yeah,
You know?
once I got into it and started to like, and what I was avoiding, just for people that may have like no awareness, like
Right.
a lot of the character, defects.
Your fair
and, like,
character.
really
Who do you have
digging-
resentments
really
against?
Digging deep.
And what was your part?
Woo!
Ooh,
Who's ready
wait
to
a
face
minute.
that music.
Hold on a second.
Yeah.
Record.
Yeah, I wrote pages and pages and pages.
Yeah, me too.
About it.
A lot of columns.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, and I had, I had caused a lot of harm in my
Right.
using, and a lot more harm than I thought.
Well, then I'm talking about the 8th step and the 9th step, none. So the 8th step is what I do, and the 9th step is let me go apologize for it.
Yeah.
And I don't know about you, but that was literally, hands down, the most freeing exercise I ever did in my life.
Yeah.
Telling people that I was sorry, who some of them were like, no, it's fine. And then I would say it and they'd be like, thank you.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes. Yeah. So powerful. Yeah,
yeah.
I like vividly can like think of like a handful of those conversations that I had that were just like really, really powerful. And there was a lot of fear around doing that. I think a big part of like doing that step work process though was me realizing that I had harmed a lot more people than I thought.
Yes.
Like I thought while I was using that I was only harming myself.
Right.
So I wanted to like make sure that I called that out.
Right. And when
yeah.
you make that amends, it like helps you forgive yourself.
Yeah, it's like an interesting like balance of like you're doing it for you. It's like helping them, but it's really freeing you. Or I'd say for
Exactly.
me, it was like freeing me of a lot of guilt and shame that I was carrying.
Yeah.
And it seemed, with the handful of conversations like that I had, that it was, well received, and it also brought up some stuff for them. It created
Yeah.
a space for them to like talk about like, yeah, we were like really worried about you, and some of that stuff was really scary, and just kind of working through a lot of those feelings felt very freeing.
It's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah,
It's like we
it really
can
is.
heal a lot of those relationships that we think that are maybe unhealable.
True.
And just having those conversations and just putting it on the table,
Yeah.
and the weight is lifted.
Yeah.
So tell me, I love what you said about even if you don't have an alcohol or substance abuse problem, the 12 steps can change your life, because I said that the minute I finished them. I said, everybody should do the 12 steps,
Yeah.
regardless.
Yeah, but I was saying at least everyone should like look into like what they are.
Yeah.
You know.
And so do you use that in your coaching?
Yeah, so I would say, so with the few clients that I've worked with, like I've had like a pretty intimate agency relationship working with a handful of clients where I've also been business partners with each of them. So
Awesome.
yeah, I would say each one of my clients, there's been like a deep like interpersonal connection and relationship with there as well. I would say as far as working with the people that I was working with, each of the working relationships was very spiritually centered. Outside of the actual 12-step programs themselves, I've never walked or supported or sponsored someone through the 12 steps, outside of the program.
Right.
Just to kind of like separate the two. But I have sponsored men and walked them through the 12
Beautiful.
steps. Yeah.
Which-
Within the program.
Yes,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
which sets you up for really being a very good coach.
I'm starting to kind of connect some of those dots now.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and also really, stepping more into the space of like, okay, it's really time for me to help people in these different ways.
Who is your target audience for people that you think you would be really perfect to coach?
I've been having conversations with other coaches recently and other mentors and other people who I look up to. And I've realized that a lot of them are my ideal client. So people that are already doing coaching
Okay.
or creative entrepreneurs.
Healers
Yep.
and
healers.
people who are delivering spiritual messages.
Yeah, or just like even coaches, in general,
healers.
personal coaches, business coaches. My other client, in addition to working with Abel, his name was Igor Galabov. So I worked with him on his Alignment of Light project. So he's a
Beautiful.
spiritual channeler. So I worked with him over the past 2 years.
I'm going to have to call you.
Yeah, he's very, very, very interesting. And the information that flows through him is fascinating. And I went to a bunch of his retreats, and I filmed his whole workshop, and we
Wow.
put it into an online course and built online communities and grew his social media. So yeah, I would say someone that's on the entrepreneurial journey, someone I think that has already figured out sort of their purpose and their thing.
Right.
That's what I've realized, because I've realized there's a lot of people, and I've gone through some programs and know some coaches that help people really find their thing.
Figure out.
Yeah, like, why are you here?
You're like,
what's
I'm
your
gonna
purpose?
Midwife you through it.
Yes, I would say that's where I can really thrive, is like someone's like on their path. They know their business, they know their clients, or they're creative and they're creating, and then, okay, you know your passion, you know your purpose. What's sort of the infrastructure that we can build around this so it has the greatest impact possible?
Beautiful.
And that's different for each client. Like,
and how do you know that?
I would say part of it's maybe a little bit intuitive, it seems. Another part of it, I would say, is based off my experience, like working both in corporate and also running projects.
Right.
And then also working with a handful of these clients. So at the foundation of each of the client relationships that I have, a lot of the increasing the amplification around the awareness of their project had to do with video content.
Right.
So I would say that's also a big core fundamental, is if you're interested in doing more video content, or if you're already doing some video content but want to have it look better, do it more consistently, kind of know like the tips and tricks of the different algorithms and all these different platforms like Instagram and TikTok and YouTube.
Yeah.
I would say that's an ideal client for me.
It says in your bio.
Yeah.
On LinkedIn. I looked on LinkedIn. I am driven by the desire to help people and make a meaningful impact.
That's right.
What do you hope your impact will be?
I feel like I have different goals with my impact. I feel like I have my own like personal impact that I want to have,
Yes.
which I'm stepping more into now.
Which is?
Sharing my story authentically, being vulnerable,
Beautiful.
helping other people
To do the same.
Yeah, do the same and build business around it, and live like a creative
that.
freedom lifestyle.
Oh my
you know,
God.
if you're not made out to, you know, work like a 9-to-5 job, or like, you know, be a part of that structure, and you want to kind of like dive in and build your own thing, but you don't know where to start. Like there's so much information out there online, but it can just be overwhelming. You know?
Yeah.
So I would say also with a lot of these podcast style conversations, I get really excited about having these.
Yes.
Because these conversations will transcend sort of space and time, and me physically being here.
Right.
So I would say, as far as impact, it's like tell my story, have as many conversations with as many people that fall into alignment.
Because your story will
help people.
Because it, how?
I would say because it's real.
It's real, yeah.
Yeah.
And it makes people feel less alone in their struggle.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point.
Yeah.
And I think it's really important, because I remember when I was like considering getting sober, I was watching videos on YouTube.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's right. We're all here to raise each other up.
Yeah, and it's like, where do people start if they're trying to think on this? You know, I just go back to myself. I go back to earlier versions of myself, and it's like, okay, I would want to be possibly somehow out there on that YouTube video, this Instagram post, someone sees me, and then they're like, oh, wow, because I don't want to take for granted all the things that I know now.
Right.
You know, and I'm forever a student, and I'm always learning, and any given day I can be like, I don't really, you know, I'm still like such like a, you know, novice on my journey in any given way.
And that's why I'm doing this podcast, the same thing. From my experiences in life. And I feel like I've learned so much. Yeah. And so I'm just right there with you. And I just love that is your sentiment. You know, I want to share my story because other people's stories help me so much.
Seriously. Yeah. And I also have started to realize more that my story matters.
It so matters. Yeah. I'm so with you on that too.
Yeah.
It took me such a hot minute to be like, I've got to do this. And it's like, no, just tell your story. People need to hear your story. That's how we, like you said, that's how we help each other. Yeah. As we share our stories, we share our vulnerability. So you're amazing.
Thank you. I just got the chills with you saying that.
Oh my God, thank you.
It's so real.
I already have the chills. I can have the chills 24/7. JK, I'm always sweating.
That's incredible.
Amazing. Well, Chaz, this has been an absolute joy, pleasure of my life. I could talk to you for 75 more hours.
Yeah, same. Seriously.
But I just am so, so, so grateful that you joined me. Is there anything you'd like to say and leave with people to get in contact with you or to check out anything specific for you?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so you can just kind of Google my name and you'll find whatever platform.
Chaz Bademan.
Yeah, so it's ChazBademan.
Hey.
Yeah, and whatever platform you're on, you can reach out to me through any one of those. And yeah, I'm really just here to like help as many people as I can.
Well,
have more conversations like this.
Yes, and I just I'm so moved by your story. I'm so grateful you shared your story with me and everyone listening. And love you.
Love you too. Thank you so much for having me on. This has been amazing.
Thank you. Yes. .com.
.com.
Right.